Dreamland actually dates back to the 1870s, making it the oldest operating amusement park in the United Kingdom. A station was built on the site of the existing Dreamland cinema. The station building was turned into a dance hall. After a few years of operation, it was acquired by Lord George Sanger. He was a circus operator and he operated the circus throughout the summer months, but he had to have somewhere where his animals could go in the winter, and he thought, well, when the animals aren't performing, we're talking here about lions and tigers and bears, they could be on display at the Hall by the Sea in Margate. So he created these pleasure gardens, which was the forerunner of Dreamland.
The first memory I have is of people. It was just so really, really busy. I didn't really take anything else in except for, oh, look at all these people, and there was an excitement. There was a kind of anticipation of having a good time.
The smell of the popcorn and the candy floss and the loud music and all the lights and everyone screaming, it was just amazing.
By 1919, another person appeared on the scene at the time called John Henry Isles. Now, he was a band leader who travelled the world with his band and became fascinated by the American amusement parks. And he was so fascinated by these roller coasters that he got the UK patent for the Scenic Railway roller coaster, and he was able to open Scenic Railway roller coasters at various locations around the UK. But what he really wanted to do was open his own amusement park. So he even called it Dreamland, which was named after one of the amusement parks at Coney Island. So as the centrepiece was the Scenic Railway, this was his chance to make a modern American style park in the United Kingdom.
Thursday evening was the night when they had fireworks, and that was my probably first memory of Dreamland. To see thousands, I mean, you're talking, I think in those days 8,000 to 10,000, wasn't it?
Lots and lots.
Yeah, 8,000 to 10,000 people on Thursday evening to see these fireworks.
One of the biggest investments to date happened in 1935 when they decided to build the Dreamland cinema, and it was the first cinema in the United Kingdom to feature a sort of tower fin, which became later known as the Odeon fin. It was adopted by Odeon Cinemas, and you could see that cinemas similar opened around the UK, including Leicester Square in London. But the Dreamland Super Cinema was the first of its kind, and it seated 2,000 people and became an absolute beacon for Dreamland right on the seafront, and was illuminated at night. And again, that's all being recreated at Dreamland today. You can see it in all its 1930s Art Deco glory.
The first thing was the man that guessed your weight, and John he was quite tall and lean, but he weighed exactly 11 stone, and we used to win the money every time. Well, my job as a candy floss maker was like no other job I've ever had. It was a really good job to be able to say that you worked in Dreamland and made candy floss. For me, was quite a proud achievement.
Dreamland actually closed during the Second World War, and it was used temporarily as a hospital for injured troops. But it reopened after the war with an injection of cash from Billy Butlin, the famous holiday camp entrepreneur. So Dreamland was actually entering, in the late 1940s, one of its most successful eras. It was only really marred by the first Scenic Railway fire, which happened in 1949, when a whole section of the Scenic Railway was actually destroyed.
They had a fairyland gardens that was fairy lights. I think it was just the magic of the evening, I think, was all lit up with lights and
colours.
Colours of a magical place to come as a treat on your holiday.
Many would say Dreamland had its most successful years. The place was absolutely packed in the 1950s, and literally whole streets would just go all travel to Dreamland together. The old sort of Beano to Margate was at its height, and you couldn't move in Dreamland.
The most important thing about coming down here was the fact that it gave us a chance to get dressed up. It was
a proper day out. It was a proper day out.
All the bands played down here, The Who, Rolling Stones.
Small Faces. We tried to come down, Joyce and I, in '66, I think it was, to see the Small Faces. In those days, there was no booking, so we came down on the scooter, didn't we? And it was sold out.
This is what Dreamland was all about. The roller coaster, wasn't it? I mean, everybody, that's what you came down here to get on the roller coaster, and then the other rides followed on.
It's important because Dreamland seems to have been built round the scenic railway. I think it was because it was one of the first of its kind. The wooden ride gives you a ride like no other. You can feel the vibrations, you can hear the sounds, and it still gives you that little dip in your tummy when you go down the dips. It still gives you that thrill.
Dreamland, when I visited, was probably at its what might call its largest expanse, where every little corner of the site was being used for rides. And the big difference really from when I visited in the 90s to what Dreamland would have been like in the 50s and 60s was that it was full of what were at the time modern white knuckle rides. At its centrepiece still had the scenic railway, and it also had a huge big wheel, which was actually, you could see it was a landmark for miles around, and was the biggest wheel in the United Kingdom at the time. Probably it seemed quite small now compared to the London Eye, but it was a huge wheel and bigger than the wheel that's at Dreamland at the moment. At the turn of the decade, as we got to the millennium, whole sections of Dreamland started closing down. And what I realised was that, and I've done a bit of research, that the scenic railway roller coaster was the oldest operating roller coaster of its kind in the United Kingdom, and one of the oldest in the world. It really just came from a passing conversation I had with a colleague at my office, where I was saying, I really think the scenic railway should be listed, it should become a listed building. And a colleague said to me, a ride can't be a listed building, and I said, well, why not? I wrote to what was English Heritage back in 2001. 2002 they contacted me to say that they had decided to list the ride as Grade 2. But then in late 2002, it was December, I got quite a few emails and phone calls from people who had heard that Dreamland was closing in the local press, and the owner had announced that he was going to close Dreamland and the site was going to be redeveloped either for housing or for shops.
It closed down, and I think it was just a sign of the times. When it closed, it was probably in the era when people started to go abroad.
Yeah.
Everybody started to go abroad on holiday, and of course Margate,
Margate,
Ramsgate, Brighton, they all went out of fashion.
When Dreamland closed, it was like Margate shut down, didn't it?
Yeah.
Literally the whole town.
It was.
Cafes, everything just went.
I set up a little website called Save Dreamland campaign. That was 2003. What I found out was within really a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, thousands of people had signed up to this website and saying we want to get on board, and it just snowballed from there. Before we knew it, we had I forget the exact numbers now, but we had sort of 6,000 to 10,000 people signed up to the campaign. We had celebrities signing up to it as well, because Dreamland meant so much to so many people. Thankfully we won. What we then did was said, right, well, if the owner doesn't want to operate it, maybe we could try and put something together ourselves. So we set up the Dreamland Trust. And then in 2008, a whole section of the scenic railway, probably about 25 to 30% of it, burnt down. But that did cause a huge outcry in Margate. People suddenly realised that we might just be about to lose Dreamland, and that was really the turning point. Finally, it opened in June 2015. It had a little bit of a shaky start for its first year or so, but since then it's really picked up, and it now appears to be a great success. And a really good mix of the old rides that have been rescued from amusement parks all around the country, running alongside modern rides side by side. So I see Dreamland now as a bit like a Blackpool Pleasure Beach of the South, along with a great entertainment and events venue.
I think it's improved because it's grown with what our expectations are of a good theme park are these days, but it's still got that old-fashioned quirkiness, that old-fashioned feel.
Well, I'd like to think it's the start of a regeneration of the town. I mean, there's a lot of work to do within the town, but there's also got so much to offer.
It goes back generations. Things come, things go, but Dreamland stays.
When I think of what we've gone through and what the Trust and all the supporters of the Trust have gone through, to walk through Dreamland today and see a park that's been beautifully landscaped, has got a fantastic selection of old rides that have been restored and brought back from other amusement parks, running alongside modern rides, to see the scenic railway completely rebuilt and restored and operating with hundreds of people riding it. It's just a great, vibrant place. It's just a nice place to be. Spend a bit of time, listen to the music, watch the entertainments that they're putting on. You really can spend a whole day at Dreamland, and I think it's going to be a great success.